Well, we got some breaking news coming out of the Southern District of Florida. Donald Trump has named a new captain to Team Crazy. Yes, a 81-year-old lawyer named Joe DiGenova, who worked under Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and Jenna Ellis in 2020 as a major MAGA election denier, has been given the role of special counsel to acting Attorney General Todd Blanche to prosecute the grand conspiracy that Donald Trump is using to go after his political enemies and rivals, like former CIA Director John Brennan. Joe DiGenova, who along with his wife, Victoria Tonsing, had worked under Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell. Now, he just barely, remember what happened to Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis? They all got disbarred and or convicted of crimes. Somehow, Joe DiGenova just barely escaped it. But the new reporting is that Todd Blanche and effectively Donald Trump, his boss, has removed the head of the National Security Division within the Southern District of Florida U.S. Attorney's Office, a real prosecutor by the name of Maria Medidas Long, because she said there was no case to make against John Brennan and she was not going to pursue it. She's now been reassigned. The Department of Justice says, nothing to see here. That's completely normal to reassign. No, it's not completely normal to remove and reassign your national security head from being the lead prosecutor because she refused to prosecute the former CIA director. Starting something new can be pretty terrifying. When I started our YouTube channel and started producing more podcasts, I kept thinking, what if no one watches and listens? What if this doesn't work? But sometimes the best decisions come right after those biggest doubts. That's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names to brands just getting started. If you're launching something of your own, Shopify makes it easy to build a beautiful online store with hundreds of ready-to-use templates that match your brand style. And Shopify lets you tackle everything in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics, making your business operations smoother. It's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/intersection. Go to shopify.com/intersection. That's shopify.com/intersection. Now we understand that this is all part of Todd Blanche trying out to get the top job as Attorney General full-time and permanently. Because we just saw a clip, remember, of Todd Blanche in which he said, Donald Trump's in charge of the Department of Justice. There is no independence, and that's a good thing. Remember that? That was just a couple of weeks ago. Play the clip.
He appeared to be expressing frustration that the department wasn't actually following through on his wishes.
I don't agree with that. I think the president wears what he thinks. He doesn't keep things from the American people. So, and yes, does he think things were going too slowly? Yes. Are things moving slowly? We have 4 years. So he is somebody who has high expectations for his cabinet and for this administration. It's not just the Department of Justice, it's in every single area. And so that type of communication from President Trump should make every American happy, because it means that there's an executive, a chief executive, that is making sure every one of his cabinet members are working as hard as they should. So telling any of us that we need to move quicker, that we need to make sure we're focused completely on mission, I know that there's a part of this country that takes that with shock and awe, but that's the same president that we have had for 4 years and now for another year and a half, and it's why we're having so much success. I mean, if you look at the things that are happening today, tomorrow's tax day. There's a whole reformation happening. There's now no tax on tips, so you have thousands and thousands of workers in this country who need it the most, who get a meaningful break. You have a new fraud task force. That's all President Trump. We are going to focus very, very heavy on the fraud and waste that's happening across this country through our tax dollars. That's because the president is a driver of results, and so I don't have any issues with that, and as a matter of fact, I think it's why he was elected.
And now we see what he means. Here comes Joe DiGenova. Now, I thought this guy, frankly, I thought he'd slid back under that rock that he came out from under along with his wife. Now, At some point in his career back in the 80s with Reagan, when he was in his 40s, he was the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia. But much like Rudy Giuliani, how can I put this nicely? He's lost his fastball, if you know what I mean. And yet now at 81, they're going to totally bypass Congress and the stavute regarding the appointment of a special counsel like Jack Smith, process and procedure. Forget it. He's just going to be a special prosecutor without having to go through the special prosecutor process. Now, if you think I'm too harsh on Joe DiGenova, here's 2 fact points, data points that you should know about. First of all, back in 2018, 8 years ago, he had this to say about John Brennan, the guy that he's now prosecuting. Watch for the use of the term traitor in his Fox appearance. Play the clip.
A while back, when you say bad cops, these were bad cops, because 99% of cops are good cops that do a lot of good. And that goes for the CIA, the intel community. Now I look at a guy like Brennan, happened on his watch. I think he probably knew all about the dossier. His involvement in this is going to be very interesting. Do we really want to live in a country where the Senate leader on the Democratic side says you better not ever say anything bad about the intel community because they'll get you?
Sean, I want to talk about 2 people. We only have so much time. John Brennan and Leon Panetta. John Brennan is a traitor, and I'll tell you why. He's the real traitor. What he did and what he has said recently about the President of the United States is despicable. He is personally responsible for the leaking of unmasked information. He was responsible for the sharing of false information to U.S. intelligence sources to get FISA warrants. He is personally responsible for the sharing of false information with American intelligence agencies. And I challenge him to a debate at the National Press Club for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours.
So do you see him as an independent-minded prosecutor that's going to follow the facts and the law wherever they lead him? Or is he somebody who's a political hack that is going to go after Donald Trump's political rival or enemy because Trump told him to? And DiGenova's gotten into trouble before because when Chris Krebs, who used to head the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, that Trump had actually established after he won election the first time around. And when he declared, counter to Donald Trump's big lie about the election, when Chris Krebs declared that the 2020 elections were the safest elections on record, that there were no outcome determinative fraud. Yes, there were bad agents around the world, Iran, North Korea, China, Russia, who were trying to influence the election. However, they were never able to hack their way in to actually convert votes, change votes that way. They were conducting mind games, brainwashing to get people to vote against Hillary Clinton. That's different. And he made that declaration when Chris Krebs said, based on his evidence of running that agency, Joe DiGenova, yes, the new special counsel down in the Southern District of Florida, had this to say about Chris Krebs. Play it.
The president wrote, "I look forward to Mayor Giuliani spearheading the legal effort to defend our right to free and fair elections. Rudy Giuliani, Joseph DiGenova, Victoria Tenzing, Sidney Powell, and Jenna Ellis, a truly great team, added to our other wonderful lawyers and representatives."
Anybody who thinks that this election went well, like that idiot Krebs, who used to be the head of cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah, the guy that was on 60 Minutes last night.
That guy is a Class A moron. He should be drawn and quartered, taken out at dawn and shot.
He should be killed, drawn, and quartered. That led to him having to apologize after Chris Krebs sued Joe DiGenova in a court of law. So this is the guy that Donald Trump thinks is going to be the right guy to go after John Brennan. Now, John Brennan is very, how do I put this? Very direct and putting his own reputation on the line and against great sacrifice is still coming out against Trump. He just said last week this about Donald Trump being unhinged and should be removed under the 25th Amendment, knowing that the sharks were in the water coming after him for a criminal investigation. Play John Brennan.
And Donald Trump's statements were asinine. and intentionally, I think, misrepresenting the facts. As we well know, he is just a consistent liar on these issues. And to use these lies as the basis to go to war that led to the devastation of so many people, and look what's happening inside of Iran and Lebanon, U.S. service members being killed, the fact that he's able to do that and members of his party and his MAGA base continue to explain and apologize for him or rationalize what he's doing is just so troubling and worrisome that this person who clearly is unhinged and who I think the 25th Amendment was written with Donald Trump's in mind, because allowing someone like this to continue to be the commander in chief and to control the tremendous capabilities of the U.S. military, including our nuclear weapons capability, which he seemed to allude to when he said he's going to just eliminate an entire civilization. Again, we really are in very, very troubling times. And I'm very glad that, at least according to reporting, Vice President Vance has brought some government professionals and experts with him to these discussions in Islamabad. And so we've gotten rid of the private equity guys and the real estate developers engaged in these negotiations. We need experts to be involved in this.
Now, this allegedly all stems back to testimony that John Brennan gave back in 2023 to Congress, talking about the 2017 intelligence community assessment about Russia and whether it colluded with the Trump campaign or otherwise to try to undermine the 2016 election. That assessment has been roundly supported even by the Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Community, adopted by people like Marco Rubio, and they concluded that there was no evidence of actual collusion between the Trump administration or the Trump campaign and the Russians. Didn't mean the Russians weren't still trying to get Donald Trump elected. He then testified in 2023 about what we now refer to as the discredited Steele dossier. Michael Steele having dumped a dossier together in which he made some pretty salacious observations about Donald Trump and his sexual preferences. I'll leave it at that. Now, Brennan testified that the upper echelon of the CIA did not ultimately support the Steele dossier, and they didn't use it as the basis of their intelligence community assessment. Of course, Trump doesn't like that. He wants them to have relied on the discredited Steele dossier to discredit their own findings. But he didn't testify that way. Why is 2023 important as the date of testimony for John Brennan? Because there's a 5-year statute of limitations concerning your testimony to Congress under oath. So they have about another 2 years to continue to go after John Brennan. Now, the new reporting is that Maria Meditis Long, very well-respected prosecutor in the Southern District of Florida, where I practice, where I'm admitted, was removed by Jason Redding Quinones, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District, who frankly was a mediocre state court judge down in Miami and was a mediocre assistant U.S. attorney in that same office. But he's got the MAGA credentials, so they made him U.S. attorney. That's how we got there. Now, who else is on the case? This is very interesting. It's a connect the dot, one dot, directly to Aileen Cannon. Yes, the judge who's overseeing the grand jury's process related to John Brennan. Her former law clerk, Chris DiLorenzo, who was a Cannon law clerk during the Mar-a-Lago case, is now an assistant U.S. attorney and will be working for Joe DiGenova. You see what a tangled web we weave that we have to unpack here on Legal AF. Of course, they bring in Chris, the beloved law clerk for the judge, to sit at counsel table to sign papers in order to give additional credibility to Joe DiGenova, who frankly doesn't practice in the Southern District of Florida, but apparently is going to now, along, I guess, with his wife. I don't know where Victoria Tunsing is, but this whole group, Tunsing, DiGenova, Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, were famously called Team Crazy by people that were in the White House counsel's office when the Jan 6 committee investigated all of it. And now we've got the elevation of Team Crazy, the new captain for Team Crazy, because you can't use Rudy Giuliani. Even Donald Trump sees Rudy Giuliani as being too nuts for the job. So you turn to Joe. He's got nothing better to do as he's entering his golden years than to go after John Brennan. We'll continue to follow it, connect all the dots all the way back to Judge Cannon, as we always do here on Legal AF. We got about 10 more videos today for you. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.